It's time for GarageBand Weekly here on Studio Live today. Are you ready? I'm ready. Let's go.
GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand Weekly.
Oh, yeah. We are here. It is GarageBand Weekly episode 117. The banner that should have been up there before. There you go. Did I mention there's been a time change and a time change? Yeah, not only did the whole of North America change your clocks in the last 24 hours, I changed the time of the show today just to keep everyone on your toes. So apologies for that if it's ruined your day. We are going to have some schedule, depending on how you like to say it, changes coming up in the next week or so. So keep an eye on the channel for those changes. You just the best advice for you is to jump on over to studiolivetoday.com. In fact, let's go over there. Go to studiolivetoday.com. You can actually join the email list. It'll pop up when you join it for the first time. You can join the email list, or just go to studiolivetoday.com/email and you'll be able to join the mailing list, and then you'll find out exactly when things are going to happen. And while we're over there, let's just stay on there for a second. Today's show is brought to you by our GarageBand iOS FAQ. Yes, you can check out all the gear that we have over there. You can check out the guide, the beginner's guide, for just $10, and you can also check out all of the playlists of all the different videos and tutorials and things that we have over there, as well as an FAQ, which is answers to all of the most common questions, all in alphabetical order for your alphabetical order needs. So if you want to learn about effects or about how to use the guitar, how to import your files, how to use Interapp Audio, it is all there. It is all free. Apart from the $10 course, if you want to pick that one up, but all the rest of it is all free. And we thank me for my support of GarageBand Weekly. How is everybody doing on this fine day? I hope you all had a good weekend. I hope you got some creating done. We're going to dive into the news and notes of the week, of which there's not a whole heap, to be honest. It's been a bit of a quiet week, and I've had a little bit of time away, a wee bit of a break in the last sort of 24 hours, which is why I'm a little bit finger off the pulse, to be honest. But we will be talking about some news and notes. We've got a feature topic. We're looking at the Alchemy Synth in GarageBand iOS, which is very, very cool. And if you've not played with Alchemy for a while, I'll refresh you about why you should go and check it out again. And we've got tips and rants and all the rest of it all coming up here on the show. Right, so news and notes, let's kick in. Yeah, finger up where? In fact, let's say good day to folks. Let's mix things up. We'll say good day to the folks who are here live. We've got Desolate Morning here. We've got Mr. Mark Bro. We've got Thomas Christ. Hello to Jade Star. Hello, Patrick Chandler. G'day to Timeless Droid, who is here. David Collett is here. G'day to everyone. I hope you are all doing swimmingly. So news and notes. The big news is that everyone's still kind of getting excited about the newness. No, not the new green iPhone 13. I guess that's a thing. But the whole bunch of new gear that we have. So the announcement we had from Apple just over a week ago was that we have a brand new iPad Air, this little baby here. So it's now got the M1 chip. We're waiting for folks to sort of get their hot little hands on those ones and let us know how they go. But yeah, it's pretty obvious that they're going to fly along, because it's like the iPad Pro. It's got the exact same chip as the iPad Pro and pretty much the same guts, just a slightly different screen. And it is going to be a powerhouse when it comes to GarageBand iOS recording. And of course, we've got the new Mac Studio, the Empower Station. So we've got the elongated, extruded Mac Mini that is the Mac Studio, and the Studio Display. So once again, there are a few people around the place that have already got these, but we're waiting for the usual suspect creators to get their hands on them. And no, that won't be me. I don't have one on order at this stage because I don't have a need for it. And that's probably what I wanted to mention here, because a lot of people have been asking me. They're like, oh, Pete, now I'm confused. Now I don't know whether I should get the Mac Mini or the Mac Studio. And I'm like, you know what? They're not really on the same page, because if you were considering a Mac Mini, if you were going to jump in here and buy a Mac Mini for $1,099 or $699 or a little bit extra if you upgraded it, and then you're going, oh, but what? Maybe I'll like get that instead. It's 3 times as much, because it's 3 times as much power. It is absolute like overkill to get the Mac Studio. If you're not sure why you need it, you don't need it. It's kind of that way with a lot of high-end gear. If you're sitting there and you're on the fence and you're like, I don't really know if I need it, you don't. No, unless you're doing like multiple streams of 8K video or you're just doing amazingly complicated stuff and amazingly complex projects, you don't need the Mac Studio. It's nice, it'll be shiny, but it's not there. And then, of course, the new iPhone that was released last week, or that was announced last week, is the iPhone SE3, which I'm pretty excited about because I love the SE. It is a power. This one is going to be powerful, and for an on-the-go phone to just take with you, and if you're using GarageBand on iOS on your iPad for your main production, yeah, it is handy to have a phone that can run all the same stuff. That's just as powerful. And this thing with the A15 chip is going to really fly along. So I think that in order of creative relevance, it's definitely the iPad Air is definitely going to be one that's worth looking at if you're in the market for an iPad. The iPhone, if you're looking for a new phone and you don't care about things like cameras and screens and fanciness, then I'd look at that. And then, of course, the Mac Studio is not really going to be for you, for most GarageBand creators. That's not to say that GarageBand creators aren't awesome. And if you want to get the latest and the shiniest, then go for it. But it'd be kind of like getting a Lamborghini to drive your kids to school or to go down to the shops. And if you want to do that, plenty of people do. More power to you. I have a 12 mini A4. Timeless Droid has the 12 mini, the previous one. Yeah, it's good. Like my wife has it and has had it and loves it for her use. And she loves her home button. She doesn't like the notch and she doesn't like the lack of a home button. And I tend to kind of agree. I must admit, I was out yesterday. It was quite bright. I had my sunglasses on, and I was like, oh, I can't actually open my phone. Whereas she was just like, well, you know what? When you've got a button, you just put your finger on it, and it opens. So, yeah, that's something worth considering there as well. So that's really all for the news and the... Actually, no, there's a couple of other things that I wanted to mention here. I'm like, that's all. No, it's not. Not specifically GarageBand related. I'll just go and make sure that it is already up over here. Yes, it is. So, coming up at the end of this week, at a time to be announced, because it's just too hard. Just go over there and set a reminder. It's at 7:30 a.m. my time. Which means I don't know at the moment because there's so many time zones and so many time changes. But I'll be joining the one and only Jade Star for a rant, our 8th edition of our uncensored rants that we like to do. So it's in the same time slot that Jade normally has a guest, an interview. But I'm sorry, instead of being someone really interesting that you're going to find out a lot about, it'll be me. But we will have some fun here. We'll throw this in the chat now. We'll just pop it on over and put it here in the chat so those that are watching here can check that out. Or if you're on the replay, just type in Jade. You can see that's all I do. I just type in Jade Star. My search results are quite often just filled with Jade Stars because I'm always looking up and seeing what Jade is doing for fun. Alrighty, and the one final thing I wanted to talk about here in the news and notes is that you may have been following along. In fact, last week we finished off this song, which is the song that I'm working on with Tremor Bear. He created all of this music and I recorded the vocals. It's this one here.
Let's drink a toast to all the confusion.
And the news is that Tremor Bear, I've given this back to Tremor Bear. He has mastered it now, and it is almost ready for releasing. So Tremor Bear is going to release it, of course, using our friends at DistroKid, because why wouldn't you use DistroKid? And he's just sent me the master file. In fact, I think I've got it queued up here. Why don't we take a quick listen to the mastered version of this track? If it'll play. Here we go.
Let's drink a toast to all the confusion.
So you can hear there, it's a little bit more rocky. It's got a bit more bass in there, and I think it's going to sound great. And we're just working on some concepts and ideas for videos and things at the moment. So if you got any ideas for that, do let me know. It's called an illusion. So I'm like, how do you do an illusion, like some sort of video illusion or something? I'm not sure. And as if his ears were burning, Tremor Bear is here to say g'day. Hello, Ronnie Cook as well. Thank you for dropping on by. Nothing pretty about synth. G'day. We're going to be talking about synths in just a few minutes because that is our topic du jour or du week. What's du jour is of the day. Du week. What is a week? I can't remember what a week is in French. Topic du week. Yeah, it's probably not important. No, check that. It's definitely not important. Alrighty. So in fact, let's dive straight on in to our feature topic because we are looking at the Alchemy Synth. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start a new project here, and I'm just going to show you why the Alchemy Synth is super cool and why, if you haven't explored it in depth, you probably should, because it's a bloody great little piece of kit. Now, the history of this is that Alchemy Synth used to be a separate standalone synthesizer. Apple purchased it and integrated it into Logic Pro on Mac and also into the GarageBand iOS. So it's actually a pretty high-end bit of kit. Like it is an app that goes back a long time, and there are some people who lament the death of Alchemy, and they wish that it was still standalone and that Apple didn't have it. But you know what? For us GarageBand users, we get it for free on our iPads now. So you will need the latest version of GarageBand and of iOS. So it only came out after iOS 11, I believe, version 2.3. No, it might have been iOS 10. Anyway, it was GarageBand 2.3. They added in a whole bunch of stuff, including the Alchemy Synth. So to get there, we just create a new song. Bang, new song. We go to the keyboard, and you see, if you just tap the keyboard, it'll take you into whatever keyboard you used last. In my case, the classic rock organ. But if instead you actually tap on this one here, it will take you into a default Alchemy Synth. And it's actually my favorite synth, and probably just because it's always the one that pops up. But the Epic Cloud Formation. It is just an awesome sounding synth. I use it for pads in all sorts of songs. If you've listened to my music, you've probably heard the Epic Cloud Formation. Now, we'll play around with this a bit, but just in case you wanted to change your synth, all you need to do is tap on the middle button there, and you can see here we have a heap of these. And this is where people sort of start to get a little bit confused, because they come in here and they're like, oh, what are these, and where's the rest of the stuff? You got to go back to your main categories here, and you can see that you've got regular keyboards, and you've got like your classic synths and your synth bass and your synth lead and your synth pads. But if you go into Alchemy Synth, you get a whole separate group of instruments here, of categories. So it can be confusing, because some people are like, I'm out here, and they're like, where's the Alchemy stuff? And it's like, no, that's your classic stuff. You need to go into Alchemy. And once you're in Alchemy, you need to go back. Like people say, but now I can't find my other instruments. Other used to be down the bottom. Yeah, you got to go back, and you got to go down. I know for most of you, you know that, and I'm telling you stuff you already know. But for considering I get that question 2 or 3 times a week, saying, I've lost my others, I don't know where they went, that's where they went. So that's where we can come in here to Alchemy, and again, you've got a whole lot. You got bass, a heap of bass. You got 808s out the wazoo. You've got brass, guitars, a few little guitar things there. You got your keys, your leads, your mallets, etc. So that is everything that we have in the Alchemy Synth. But how do we use it? Well, in its simplest form, you load it up. It loads up a preset. In this case, the Lush preset, and we can play it here. So we can just play the keyboard, just as you would any other instrument. And the cool thing is you can use all the same features. So if you've used keyboard in GarageBand iOS, you can use the chords mode here. You can use your arpeggiator, which is this one here. We'll turn that one on and run the arpeggiator. You can use your autoplay. So we turn the autoplay on, and there's 4 different settings for autoplay on each of these. So you can do it, all the same stuff you can do with keyboards, you can do with the Alchemy Synth, but you can also do a heap more on the scale mode as well. So if you don't know, if you want to go your pentatonic scales, you can throw this in. Create yourself some cool melodies there. So all of the things you can do with your regular keyboard, you can do with Alchemy Synth. But you'll notice you've also got a bunch of things up here. You've got a pitch bend wheel. I'm going to have to move my hands down here so I can actually do both of these. So you can play a note. You've also got your modulation wheel. You've got velocity control. Which helps you create different tones. And then this is where the magic starts. You've got all these presets, but they're not just, you can just tap them on, and there's 8 different presets you have for each different Alchemy Synth. So we've got Lush, we've got Soft, which softens it up a bit. We've got, what's this one called? Flanger Pulse. That's kind of cool. We've got High Pass, more of a high pass filter. But what you can do is, if you're like, oh, I want something that's sort of somewhere between Lush and Soft, well, yeah, you can actually dial it in between. and get yourself like a slightly different sort of sound. So this moving around, and what you'll notice is as we move this, these are moving. So this is changing the delay, the cutoff, the reverb, and the resonance. And you might be thinking, well, that's not really enough, Pete. How is it making all these different sounds by just changing them? See how we've got these three dots down here? Yeah, there's a whole lot more under the hood of Alchemy Synth. So if we slide across, which I can't do with the mouse because, I don't know, iOS, but if we slide across the top there, check this out. Yeah, we got all this business. So hidden on the other side of this delay and cutoff and everything else is a whole separate section. So you can slide across the top there and you've got a heap to play with. You've got delay, cutoff, reverb, and resonance, but you've also got your LFO, your low frequency oscillator, and your LFO rate. You've got your panning and modulation. You've got your rate for that one. You've got attack, decay, sustain, and release. And you've got a couple of little XY pads that you can actually change things. So you can really alter the sound big time. And you can actually play with these in real time. Yep, you can touch your knobs while you play. So if we hit the button here, let's get a little bit more attack on that one. And the coolest thing is, if we record in a sound, so let's just do a quick recording here. I just need my back to the front here. I need to put my velocity up a little bit on this one. All right, we'll come back over to here and we'll grab this and let's just record this C note and move this and look what happens here in the Alchemy Synth. And release. So what we did there is we played in, and you can play in a note, but you can also move things around at the same time. So when we play this back, there it goes. Look, Ma, no hands. So it's pretty darn cool. And you can actually use your multi-record mode here. So if you're like, well, Johns, how can I play and play at the same time? No problem. You can come in here and you can turn on your merge recordings function. And that means that if we record over the top of this, we can fiddle. So let's fiddle with our knobs while we record this in again. It'll play back the sound that we already had in there. And watch what we can do. We can even change this one. And there you go. Hit the stop button. Now when we play it back, it'll start twiddling these knobs. Yay, no hands. How cool is that? So a bunch of stuff that you can do here with the Alchemy Synth. Now, we've recorded in one Alchemy Synth. If you want to add another one, we can layer them up. Just come out here, hit the plus button, go to your Alchemy Synth again, and let's choose something else. Let's get a bass this time. So if we come up here to our bass, we can choose any sort of bass that we want. What about a big hollow bass? That was my nickname in high school. Big hollow bass in here. That's kind of cool, but we want to tweak the sound a bit. We want more of a stab delay sound. Yeah, right? Yeah, that's cool, because it's got that kind of stereo slide going side to side, which is pretty darn cool. So let's hit the record button, and we'll just record some little stabs in here. 2, 3, 4. There you go, we can start layering up some sounds of our Alchemy Synth. Let's grab one more sound here, just so that I can show you that not all Alchemy Synths are created equal. There are some, in fact, that are arpeggiated by design. So if we come into our arpeggiated section here, these ones are pre-arpeggiated, so you don't need to use the arpeggiator to use them. Let's go into, say, the Glowworms from Alpha Waves, which is one of my favorite packs, and so you can see I'm only hitting the one note. I don't have the arpeggiator on. Well, actually, I do. It automatically puts it on for you. So you don't get control over the arpeggiator, but it's just on there. So if we now... So if we record this sound over the top here, let's hit the record button and give it a bit of this. And you can see how much texture you can create. Like, I'm not doing a whole lot of stuff in here, but you're creating a whole bunch of texture here just by doing that. All right, we'll go in here with one more thing, because I think we need like a high lead kind of sound for this. So if we come in here and we'll go to the leads, we'll find a cool sounding lead. What about a boxy room pluck from the back light bounce pack? And what I wanted to show you here is if you go across the top here, these are different. So you get different things. So now you've got this oscillator sync, and you've got this EQ tilt, and you've got a harmonics adjustment for this one. So dependent upon which one you choose, you've got a whole bunch of different options. So you can see how much depth there is in this and how much control you have over the sounds you get. It is very, very darn cool. So let's hit the record button and just record a little lead part to go on the top of this one. And obviously you would take a little more time to get things in order there. But yeah, the Alchemy Synth, if you haven't played around with it or you haven't played with it for a while, go and have some fun. Go and twiddle some knobs. I think you'll enjoy yourself and have a good old time. Let's jump back over to the chat here. Thomas Christ says, Alchemy is a greatly underrated synth. Tons of great sounds variations, even in the GB iOS version. Yeah, totally. And if you want to take it to the next level, grab Logic on the Mac, and it will definitely impress, and you'll do a good thing. Hello to Beggars Can't Be Pickers. Hello to BBS who's here. We've got some questions, by the way. I'll jump in and answer any questions you have. If you do have questions, please just put the word question in front of your question, and I'll be able to ensure that I see it there. But BBS says, did you hear about the Shure MV88 Mic Plus for your iPhone, for your Android to get good audio? If it was guitar, do you think it would pick up good sound? The microphone is $200. So I have the Shure MV88. It does okay. There's a couple of problems with it. It is a lightning-based the version I have is lightning-based, meaning you have to plug it directly into the lightning port, and that means you can't use it with USB, so you can't use it with anything else. So I can only use it for my iPhone, and the base model doesn't have a headphone jack, so you can't monitor your audio either, so it's really useless. Great for recording on the go, so I use it for recording when I'm just using my phone and I want to record something, but terrible for music production. The MV Plus, however, and why don't we just bring it up over here, in fact. I'll just go over to, we'll just search Shure MV88 Plus. So this is what it looks like. Where's me screen there? So this is what we're talking about here. It's $200. It's $369 here in Australia. It's just this little sucker, a little microphone there. You can see that now this one, the MV88 Plus, actually has a actual connector there, so it doesn't plug directly in, so it is a little bit better. It is a small microphone. It's a small diaphragm condenser microphone. Does have some different polar patterns and does have some cool stuff that it can do, but it's really not designed for music. I think there's a lot better options that you can get. I personally wouldn't get a microphone like this, a USB type microphone. I would look to get yourself something like the iRig Pro IO, and then you can plug anything in. Then you can just plug any XLR microphone you like. And if you were to price these, obviously I'm here in Australia, but $369 for that. If I went the iRig Pro IO, even here in Australia, it's like $289 for that. And then I could buy myself like $100 or $150 Shure SM57, or I could get an Audio-Technica AT2020. I just think that going the component route is a lot better. And if you're in the US, I think the iRig's only about $199, and then getting a microphone is about $100. So you'd probably spend a little bit more, but you get a lot more flexibility. That's been my personal experience anyway with those smaller microphones that just don't quite pack the same punch. Really great if you're just on the go and you need something to plug in and use and you don't want all the hassle. But yeah, I've got, like I said, I've got the older version, the MV88, and it's okay. I wouldn't. The reason you haven't heard about it much on the channel is I use it for videos when I'm out and about shooting videos on my phone, and that's about it. For music production, doesn't really cut it. Ronnie Cook says, I really need some help getting songs to sound more pro. I can do okay, but I can't get the pro sounding like I want. I just have an iPad. It really just does come down to practicing and trial and error. There's a lot of things. You can watch videos till the cows come home about compressor settings and EQ and mastering and all this business, but it really comes down to just practicing. And in fact, it's a good segue into my rant of the week. So I'm gonna use this comment here from Ronnie as my segue into the rant of the week. So I wanted to talk about communities. I want to talk about music communities, because when I was starting to produce music, I was doing it all alone. So I didn't have this channel, so I didn't have you wonderful folks in this community. I wasn't a member of any of the Facebook groups that I now am members of. I didn't know what Discord was. I still barely do. But what I learned early on is that having a shared experience is super important, and it's really, really helpful in getting things done. The reason being that if you share your music, you can actually get some valuable information about yourself, and you can fix some of the blind spots that you may not realize you have. So every week, for instance, I do a show called Your Music Live. Many of you have been on the show, have had your music played, or at least aware of the show. The benefit that show has is that, yes, we're playing music and we're celebrating music, but the community that's built up with that, we've now got folks who are collaborating with other artists that they heard in that community. We've got folks who have now joined things like the GarageBand Users Facebook group or the Create, Record, Release Facebook group that hadn't before. We've got people that had not used Facebook. They hated Facebook and they did not want to use Facebook at all, but they joined Facebook just so that they could be part of those communities. And, some of you might be watching here now or watching on the replay, so let me know if you are. But the benefit of that, the benefit of having this is to have the community around you. So as Ronnie says here, it can be tough and sometimes you don't know. But what we've got in those communities is people sharing their songs. We've got people sharing entire projects. We've got people sharing their songs and other people listening to them, downloading them and checking them, providing solutions or at least suggestions of how they can improve and what they can do differently. Because again, if you don't know what you don't know, and there's no way to just instantly wave a magic wand and know it. And even if you've watched 100 tutorials, your situation may not be the same. It's why when I see these tutorials that are like, here is the one plugin you'll ever need, or here's the one compressor setting that you'll ever need, I'm like, it's bollocks. It's absolute bollocks, because it's different. Your voice will be different. Your gear setup's different. Everything could be different with your songs, so you need a community. So I say all that to say the Create, Record, Release community is a great one. Jade Starr's got her community. If you're a BandLab, a Cakewalk by BandLab user, Mike's got a great channel there. So yeah, join some communities, share your music, get some feedback, and it'll really fix it. Because again, I always tell the story that I would mix my songs and I thought they sounded okay, but there was something not quite right. And then I got, it was Leif Bjork, who's a great creator, just said to me, he's like, Pete, your vocals are too loud. And I'm like, what do you mean my vocals are too loud? Your vocals have to cut through the mix. He's like, no, listen to them. They're good, but they're too loud. Yep, went back, listened to the vocals, too loud. Since then, I've been mixing my vocals lower, almost to a fault. Sometimes I mix them too low now. So I've been mixing my vocals lower. Guess what? It sounds more professional. It doesn't sound like the vocals are sitting on top of the mix. It sounds like the vocals are part of the mix. So yeah, having a community around you is super important. So I suggest that highly. And speaking of communities, if you want to join a close-knit community of very cool people where we do exclusive live shows and we share a lot of stuff with each other, you can join the Patreon. But go to studiolive today.com/Patreon if you are interested in that. We'll see if we've got any other questions. How to get drums back when erasing on accident. If you're talking about GarageBand iOS, the way to get things back if you erase them. So let's just say I went and deleted this. I'm like, oh no, I deleted this thing. Undo. So the only real option you have is undo. It stores, I think, 20 undo actions. You can tap and hold and hit redo if you want to redo what you undid, or you can undo it again. So that's the easy way. Here's the problem, though. As soon as you save out and go back in, guess what? All of your undos are erased. So this is why I highly recommend version control. It won't help you if you've got a problem right now, but to alleviate this and the accident, because everyone's done it, everyone's accidentally deleted stuff, is if I come out here and I just call this one Al, because it's my Alchemy demo, once I reach a point here, I've done half an hour's worth of work on this song and I'm like pretty happy with it. Before I go and do anything else, what I'll usually do is tap and hold on this and then hit duplicate. And what that does is it creates a version 2. And then just keep doing that, tap and hold and duplicate. And yeah, it takes up a bit of space every time you do it, but you can then start deleting the old ones if you want. because GarageBand has very poor built-in version control, but you can kind of hack your way around it just by duplicating out your projects, and then you'll have other versions. And when you go away and work on them, if you make a mistake, you can go back to, let's say in that third version you deleted some drums, you can go back to the first version or the second version where the drums exist, copy them from there, paste them back in, no harm, no foul. So that's the way that I would go with that. What mic do you have on your vocals? So I use a couple of mics. This one right here is actually a handheld condenser mic. So this kind of gives you the best of both worlds. It's a direct unidirectional handheld mic, but it's actually a condenser. So it does require phantom power. It's the Audio-Technica AE3300, and I just like it because it's nice and bright and just clear. And for doing things like this, you can hear me nicely through here. It's not muddy, and but it's not over bright like some of the other condensers can be. I also use this one down here that's always in my drawer ready to go, which is the AKG D5. So this is very similar to a Shure SM58. It's just a handheld dynamic mic. So I use that. The vocals I recorded for Tremor Bear for his song, I recorded using that microphone, and I have an Audio-Technica AT2020. And look, both of those mics, this one's about a $300-$400 microphone, and most people won't need this. But what I say to people starting out is your first microphone I'd buy is like a condenser, because that does most things, like something like the Audio-Technica AT2020, and then pick yourself up either a Shure SM57 or 58 or something like the AKG D5, because it just it works a bit better to have those options. Because if you're recording something like some quiet, intimate sort of vocals, you might want the condenser. If you're yelling and screaming and shouting some punk rock, then a dynamic can sometimes be better, because it handles louder sounds a lot better. Hopefully that helps you. Oh, and all the recommendations I have are over the gear guide, studiolive.today.com/gear. I wasn't playing with a MIDI controller, no. I was just using my fingers on the screens. But of course, you can use a MIDI controller to control Alchemy Synth. Good point. Something I should have said there. Sometimes I make assumptions, but that's why it's great to have folks here. Yes, GarageBand does indeed have great instruments. And I think it's what people miss when they move from GarageBand and go to something else. That's what they miss. They miss the ease of use of getting such good quality instruments without any hassle or effort. I'm having a hard time choosing an interface. 2i2, iRig Pro Duo. I have a paralysis by analysis. It can be difficult, and it really depends. Here's what I would say. If you are doing things mostly mobile, get yourself a iRig Pro Duo or a Pro IO. If you're setting up just at a desk and you barely ever move, I think there is a slight benefit to having something like it's just easier to have it because it's a heavier thing. It sits on your desk. It's easy to plug things in, and the cables and the connectors are not quite as finicky. So that's what I tell people these days. I'm like, if you record in pretty much the same space, you got your iPad or your Mac or whatever, and you plug it into an audio interface, grab yourself something like the Scarlett 2i2 or the Steinberg UR22C. If there's a chance that you've got some time to record and you want to do it in the garage, or you want to be like Gary Hubbs and go out to the parking lot and record, then that's where the iRig Pro Series really shines. But if you've got a permanent setup, I would go with more of a permanent kind of thing. It's kind of what I'm finding out. I have a YouTube channel with what I've done so far. But yeah, cool. And that's the other thing you can do with community. You can share things on your own channel, and then people will come to you, hopefully, and they'll check it out and they'll give you feedback if you ask for it. But that's the thing. You do have to ask. You have to ask for feedback. A Behringer U4E UM2 that works great for laptops. Yeah, look, at the Behringer UM2, the only drawback with that is it's only a 16-bit interface, but for most people and most production, it's fine, and it's super cheap. Like, it's a really cheap entry-level one. So, if you're starting out and you want to get something, then something like that can help you. I like using stereo. Yeah, stereo lag time is a great little plugin, by the way, and it's free. Free! The best price for anything is free. There you go. Also, since there was some discussion, the best place to get feedback, yes, exactly. Create, record, release. Version control, one of my weak spots. Yeah, look, it's worth it. It's definitely worth using version control if you can, Mark. Because and look, if you're really careful, it's fine. But sometimes you're in that creative groove, and you want to make sure that you're not going to ruin it if you do something that you shouldn't do. So there you go. Hello, Omni Collective Creativity. Alchemy Synth patches sound better mixed than the keyboard patches. Have any of you noticed that when playing with the two? Yeah, they're just. I think they're just higher quality. Like the sounds and the samples that you have in Alchemy are just super high quality. I think some of those old ones that came out with GarageBand have been around a long time. A lot of them are like the original 16-bit samples that came in like GarageBand version 2.0, and they're just sounding a bit long in the tooth. And I don't think they're as high quality. Whereas Alchemy, everything in there is like a really finely tuned samples, and even the like the synths, the ones that are created sounds, they just spend a lot of time, I think, tweaking them and making sure that they sound good. But yeah, I agree. Yes, look, I'm super blessed. You don't need all the gear. I'm super blessed to have what I have, and it's not that I went out and just bought everything. And I also don't buy the highest end stuff. You might think, oh, but Pete, you could afford to have an SM7B and be like everyone else now. Yeah, probably could, but not many of you are going to be using that. And I want to use the stuff that you are potentially going to use because we're all in this together. Like everyone's in their home studio and their bedroom studio. I mean, yes, bedroom studio. Again, I could move things around, but I think it's cooler just to be a little bit more realistic with what we do. Excuse me. Oh, yeah. A bit dusty this morning. Let's just say, yeah, we had an afternoon and evening out yesterday with the family, so it wasn't anything raucous, but still. Couple that they opened up a new area here down by the river. There's this riverfront area, like a lot of cities have these days, and it's really, really cool down there. But they had one of my favourite beers there, and I maybe had 2 or 3 more than I should have. There you go. AT 2020 and D5 here, and I use both. Yeah, exactly. I think that's the best suggestion for someone starting out in the home studio is to get yourself a decent quality condenser mic first, the AT 2020, and then if you've got more to spend or if you want to make sure that you're covered, get yourself a decent quality dynamic mic. And if you can only afford one, I'd go the condenser because it is more versatile than the dynamic. Dynamic, if you've got a quiet sound, you have to boost the gain so much that it won't sound that great. Especially on sort of entry-level audio interfaces and the like. Oh no, lost your signal. That is not good. Hopefully you get it back soon. Hello, Roke Avalanita. Hope you're doing well. Thomas says, I really like the idea of condenser mic in handheld format, so that's on my wish list. Yeah, check these ones out. They're really hard to find these days, and they're not the cheapest. But yeah, condenser mic with a handheld format, and the benefit is that you get the benefit of a condenser, but you can hear that the handling noise is virtually nil. Like I have to really grab it and tap, so I can use this and just talk and have it handheld. Obviously, you do need to have phantom power, so it won't plug into just like a regular PA or an amp or anything. But most gear has phantom power these days. So yeah, I highly recommend this one. But the reason I don't talk about it here on the channel very much is that it's pretty expensive, and I don't think unless you have the exact specific purpose that I do, which is doing live streaming, I don't know that it's something that most people need. So yeah, but it is cool to have a handheld in a handheld condenser in a handheld format. And yes, I realised, so Rockin' Ronnie Ward is actually live right now. I did let Ron know. I'm like, look, Ron, sorry, I'm gonna have to do GarageBand Weekly late this week, so there's gonna be some overlap. He's like, yeah, that's cool, man, no problem. That's my Ron Ward. We'll have a live look in at Ron Ward towards the end, and I do suggest that you all head on over there and check out Ron's show. Yeah, exactly, Bear. Try Cubases but missed the GB instruments. I was exactly the same in Aurea Pro and in Cubases. I just missed having those, just being able to dial in a really cool bass sound immediately, or just dial in a pad, or just dial in like some cool, all the drum options. Like we haven't even touched on drums, but yeah, there are just so many options. Sometimes, sometimes too many options. Sometimes it is like, yeah, analysis paralysis, like we were saying before, but yeah, it is cool. Hey, Clayton Von Kluge, I hope you're doing well, my friend. The Alchemy samples have better pitch shifting transition. Yeah, exactly. They do sound really good when you do that, when you shift the pitch on them. Sounds great. I've done Alchemy synth songs where I've just held down one note and I've just made that move around by just changing the pitch shifting and then moving some of the knobs and dials. It's a lot of fun. Very good fun. I'll just see if we've got any other final questions before we go to our next section. It's cool. I love the interaction. So thank you for being part of the community. If I get a real guitar again and I want one of those things to plug it into my iPhone, yeah. And that's where something like the iRead Pro I/O is really good, because it can just plug in anything like a synth or a keyboard or a guitar or a microphone. It just takes it all. It takes it like a champ. It's great. What happened to the input gain is grey now, so I can't move the slider up or down in GarageBand. Could you do it on the... Yeah, so the input, this is an interesting one. And I should really do a video on this because I do get asked about this a lot. I've mentioned it in some videos, but when you're using GarageBand, what you used to be able to do is if you hit the plus button here and you went into a audio recorder track, then we'll turn on monitoring. Now for me, I've got an external gear anyway, so this won't move up and down. But even if I unplugged everything, which I can't because it's all sort of hooked up, you used to be able to turn that up and down and control the input gain if you're just using the built-in mic. They removed that feature, and I really don't know why. I don't know why they removed it, but now you'll notice that even if you're just using it, in fact, if I do it on my iPhone here, well, let's just fire up GarageBand on the iPhone. If I grab my iPhone, and we grab a audio track. I don't know why. No one's saying we believe you, Pete. We don't need to show. But just so that you can see, if we come back over to this view, you can see there that it's the same thing. And it's annoying because if I've got a really loud sound, la 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 la, I'm like peaking there. So really the only way to control that is to just vary your distance, which also then, that can bring in some artifacts and things into your mix, so into your sound and your recording. So it's not an ideal solution and scenario there, but it probably just makes it more important that you grab yourself a microphone or some sort of audio interface, because then you can control your input gain directly on the interface itself. So yeah, it does make it annoying. Hello, Aaron Anderson. Mr. Anderson, I hope you're doing well. Have you signed with a label yet? No, and I never will. I know that sounds weird. Look, we could have a discussion for a long time about independence and why signing with a label is something that I just don't want to do. But the problem is that, and I talked about this recently on a show where I said, make sure that you clearly define your own view of success, what success is for you, because a lot of people think that getting signed by a record label means they've made it. The problem there is that around about 98% of people that get signed with a record label make very little or zero or owe money to the label by the end of their record deal. So being signed to a label is a good sign. It means that someone thinks you're good, or it means that the record label's doing what they do best, which is rolling the dice 100 times, hoping that they hit the right number on one of those and making up all the money that they've spent and wasted on the other 99 artists with the one that makes it. It's sad, it's unfortunate, but it's also why I will stay independent. Like no one's knocking on my door. Don't worry, no one's knocking my door down saying we want you to sign a record deal. But it's why I stay independent, and why whenever anyone asks me this question or says, hey, I'm looking to get a record deal, I want to get signed, I say, cool, but be careful. Tread very carefully. I honestly, I know people that have signed record deals that have done okay, but the vast majority of people I know, not to be a Debbie Downer, have done better when they were independent and they own their masters and they own their own marketing. Doesn't mean you can't use like marketing, like someone to help you with marketing or someone to help you with social media promotion, as long as it's legitimate. It's not someone that's just going to buy you 1,000 Instagram followers for $25. That doesn't work. But yeah, it doesn't mean you can't do things yourself, but I'm a big fan of independence. And I know that wasn't what you're asking. Yeah, it's a very simple question and I gave you a complicated answer. But yeah, no and no thanks. Curtis Earth has a question here. I'll take a drink while I throw it up here. Says, I was using iFretless sax on a project called Luna. The app sounds great, but there's no volume control available after you lay down the track. Literally couldn't make it louder or softer. Using the gain trick on the EQ, it didn't work. That's super weird. Yeah, I don't know why it wouldn't work, because it may be that does the EQ trick works on external instruments, on Interap Audio or AUV3. I would say probably the best way to go, because I've had this with some other things where you just can't adjust it and there's nothing you do works. What I would do in that situation, Curtis, is merge the track, because then you'll get full control over it. For instance, if I've got like this track here, if I was finding problems like I couldn't adjust the volume or it was still sounding bad or I wanted to do something, what I would do is tap on here and hit the merge button. Like once I was happy with the performance, hit the merge button and then hit merge, and that'll convert this into an audio track. So now I've got this merge track, and then you can actually tap on it, hit settings, and use your clip gain to actually control it here. Or you can use the volume, or you can use the EQ hack where you come in here, you go to the EQ, and you turn it up or down over here. So that's probably, I know it's a bit of a hack and a workaround, but that's the solution that I use when I don't have control over a track, or it's doing something weird in the MIDI, or it's doing something weird with an external instrument. And the benefit of that is if you then shared it with someone that doesn't have that instrument, it'll still work. If you then share it onto a device that doesn't have the plugin, it'll still work. And it'll use a lot less processing power. So that is something to keep in mind. I know it's not the perfect solution, but it's something to keep in mind. Excuse me, sorry. Sorry about that. Thomas Christ says an audio interface and decent mic is probably the best investment you can make in terms of improving. Absolutely. If you are looking to improve, and look, you have to spend a fortune. Yes, a Focusrite Solo or a Steinberg UR12 or even some of the Behringer entry-level stuff. It'll cost you $100 to $150 US, and then buy yourself a $100 microphone. Like, you can literally get yourself set up with a fairly pro-sounding. I don't say it lightly, but when you plug in, like if I got my Steinberg UR22C and then I just plug in an AKG D5, that noise floor is super low. That sound is super high quality. And yes, would it be better if it was going through, some $1,000 worth of gear? Probably. But is it way good enough for most people in the home studio to create a sound that's going to sound cool and radio ready? Yeah, I think so. All right. I spent my summer Sunday composing. Summer's coming. Yes. Congratulations to those whose summer is coming for it. I think we're getting our last little bit of summer here. Righty. Yes, merge. Exactly. Merge is the answer for that. Timeless Droid says, I'm in it for enjoyment. I don't even keep the royalties. I donate 100% to buy pizza for the homeless through DistroKid, Artists for Change. Very cool. Very cool of you indeed. Don't forget that you can do that. DistroKid have the option to do the Artists for Change. I've got to do that a bit more with some of my older songs. I went in and did it with a couple, but I need to do more. Not that it's going to help, because to be very honest, I think I'm usually making around about $20 a month for DistroKid, and that's across an album and 3 EPs and a bunch of singles. So yeah, streaming royalties don't exactly pay the bills, but you know what? It's nice. It's nice to have. As I always say about releasing music, if someone's streaming your music and someone's getting paid for it, it might as well be you. So even if it's only, rats and mice and pennies and dimes, you might as well be getting those pennies and dimes as anyone else. And then in the case of a Timeless Droid says here, you can then pass it straight on. You can donate your stuff, which is very cool. All right, let's go back to the list, because I've forgotten where we're up to. We had such great questions and interactions. I forgot where we're up to. Yes. So we've got a couple of things to go here. Let's look at our plugin or app of the week, because everyone is. Oh, I just clipped. You're like, oh, thanks, Mr. Audio Guy. You're teaching us how to do audio, and then you just spoke so loudly you clipped your signal. Yeah, I think I need to buy like an outboard compressor or something that I can, or a limiter that I can make sure that I do that, because I get excited. I set my levels, and then I get excited and go, Rah! And then it clips. So let's take a look at a cool new app. I'm going to hit the plus button here, because I have just downloaded this. I know I'm always behind the 8-ball when it comes to apps and things. That's why I love that Jade Star has had an app on iOS, and other people do app reviews. But everyone is talking about Numa Player. Why? Because it's cool, and it's free, and it's awesome. So if you haven't seen all the hype and all the stuff around Numa Player, it is available for both PC and Mac and iOS. Yeah, it's like across everything. It's VST, it's AU, it's AUV3, it's everything, and it's a keyboard. So why is it so cool? What does it do that other things don't? Well, you get some really good high-quality instruments in here. So the interface is kind of a bit interesting here on iOS. You can see in the top left, we've got all of the different sets of instruments here. So you've got acoustic pianos here. You've got like the old-school Model D and Model Fs. You've got like an upright piano, a grand piano. And you can see as you change them here, it changes in the back here. You've got a couple of settings here that you can play around with that vary depending on which instrument you're choosing, and they're just really good sounding piano. I'm just going to turn the volume up on this track because it's not super loud. So we'll come back out to the instrument. Really nice here. So you're like, okay, Pete, there's pianos. Pianos are a dime a dozen. There's heaps of them. The quality of these, though, for free, is quite astounding. There's a lot more cool things that you can do with this though, and that is that you can actually combine and blend some sounds. So you can see here you've got pianos, you've also got electric pianos, and see how the buttons on there, if we tap on this one, it'll turn on the next one, and we can add in. Hear how you're hearing both of those sounds at the same time? And you can actually mix in how much you want of each sound. So now we've got the EP Mark 1 with a little bit of upright, because you can blend that in. And then if you're like, oh, and I also want to blend in some keys, you can come in here and choose a key. You can choose some, I love the vibes. The vibes on this thing sound great. I'll just turn the other two off just so that you can hear these vibes. It's an instrument that I use on my actual keyboard, because I've never found a virtual version that sounds good enough, but this one. Passengers, please check your luggage. Boarding is now commencing for Qantas Flight 670 to Melbourne. Enjoy your flight. Sorry, every time I do that, it just reminds me of airports. But yeah, a cool vibe sound. And here's the cool thing. We can come in here and use things like our arpeggiator on these. So we can throw the arpeggiator, because it's just a keyboard instrument again. We can use the arpeggiator. So that's kind of cool as well. The other things that we can do on this are strings. So we can jump in here and we can turn on the strings and pads. And these are very cool. A lot of people say they don't love the GarageBand strings. And I agree. They don't sound great. But these ones are pretty darn cool. So you've got like a string ensemble here. And look, it's not going to replace something like iSymphonic, but again, iSymphonic costs like $30, and this is free. You've got your whole string section. How cool is that going to sound as a pad behind your songs? You've got some cellos here. And then you've got more of your synth pad kind of sounds here. And some nice choirs. So you can like build out, and here's the cool thing, you can customize and build out the sounds you want. You can just add some vibes, bring some pianos, bring it all together, and you get pretty cool, yeah. Now, what project am I in here? Can we actually play some of this sound? Let's hit the record button and see if we can record this. Didn't really go with what we had already in there. But you can see here, you can just record it like any other MIDI instrument. It's just using the external AUV3, and then everything works exactly as it does with any other MIDI instrument. How cool is that sound? So yeah, the sky's the limit with this thing. So I thought, I was doing the show about Alchemy Synth, and I'm like, and we've got to talk Numa Player as well, because I reckon with just Alchemy Synth and Numa Player, you can create basically anything you like, because there's so many options in there. And look, I've only scratched the surface. You can play around with a whole bunch. You've got a heap of effects and things in here that you can play with, but and all the little knobs and dials that you can play with to change the sounds around, just like you can with Alchemy Synth. But it is very cool, and I've been watching videos about it for like the last week, and I'm like, I really got to check it out. And for the few folks that may not have seen those and haven't downloaded it yet, download it, because I don't really know why it's free. It's too good to be free. Like, I'd pay $10 for this app easily, probably 20, probably 30, but they're giving it away. They're giving it away for free. It's very, very cool. GarageBand iOS, yes, does have a sampler. Was there a question about the sampler? Yeah, you can create your own samples in GarageBand like you can on Logic. Yeah, so the sampler on the iPad has been updated. It now works well and looks kind of cool. So if I'll just show you the sampler. It's under the keyboard instrument. So we come back out here and hit the plus. If you go to the keyboard, you can go here to the sampler, and you can record in your own sample here. I don't have a microphone plugged in, so it won't work, but you can record in a sample, or you can use the built-in samples, or you can indeed import samples. So there's a heap of things that you can do with this one. If we go to that, you can import, and we can import any sort of sound that we want. We'll import this funky beat. No user beat. So you can import a sample there and then, which is pretty cool. And when you come out here, you can actually then chop the sample to whatever part you want. So say I only want this one hit here. You can just chop it to that, and then Pretty cool, yeah. So yeah, the sampler, and you can obviously record your own samples using that button there. So yeah, sampler for the win, right? All right. Sounds like a ringtone. Yeah, it does. It is. It's a pretty full collection of instruments. And again, the price tag for Numa Player, you definitely can't go wrong with that one. Alrighty, let's tip of the week. Finally, final tip of the week before we finish up here, and that is I was inspired with this one because I know a lot of folks struggle with sharing projects and with backing up projects. And I just wanted to reinforce what you need to do here. So let's just say I'm done with Al. I've got this Al project, and I want to go and let's say I want to send it to my friend Al. I want to send it to Night Train 1988, or I want to back it up, or I want to do something. Now, what you need to do, and keep in mind, is you pretty much always need to zip up a project. If you're going to be sending it to someone, if you're going to be uploading it to Google Drive or Dropbox or wherever, you need to zip it up. Now, you can use the built-in iCloud Drive share feature. I don't use it. I find it kind of clunky. I find it kind of annoying. So if you want to do this, we need to actually compress it. But a lot of people get stuck here because if you tap and hold on here, there's no compress button. And if you hit the select button and select it, down the bottom right here in the more, there's no compress option, and that's because you got to jump on over to Files. So I'm here in GarageBand, and what you need to do is actually go to the Files app, which looks exactly the bloody same. Why do they make things so hard? So I don't know why. I don't know why they don't just build the compression engine into GarageBand. It would make life so much easier. But I come in here into Files, I come out to here, and now when I tap and hold on Al, see how I've got these extra options, including a compression option. So if we hit compress, it zips it up, and then this file we can use wherever we want. We can upload it to Google Drive or to Dropbox. We can store it onto a USB drive. We can copy it over. We can airdrop it over to our Mac or another iOS device. It just makes it so much easier, and it captures everything. Because if you've ever looked at a GarageBand project on like a PC, you'll know that it's not just one file. It's actually a collection of files. It's a whole folder structure of files. And unfortunately, if you try to send this, it looks like it's one file, and it looks like it should be able to be copied and sent somewhere. It can't. It don't work. So unless you zip it up. So just zip up your stuff, zip it, and you'll be happy. And then remember to delete it. Otherwise, people will be looking at this later going, what did I do? Why have I got that file zipped up? What even is that file? I don't know. So hopefully that helps out you if you're doing that, because that's what I had to do with Tremor Bear when we were doing our project recently. I had to make sure that our stuff was zipped up so that we could zippity-doo-dah it on around. Oh, we've hit the point. We've tempted fate here, and we've lost the connection, which is probably meaning it's time for us to go. Just bear with me one moment, folks. I did think that this would happen today. One sec, and I'll be back. At the moment, you're seeing me all blurry, but we need to have a final look in to Mr. Rockin' Ronnie Ward and see what he's up to over on his channel. So we'll just get the connection back up, and then we'll go and see what Ronnie's doing over on his show, because we're going to finish up in just a jiffy. Come on, connection. You can do it. Come on through. We know you know how. All right, well, we're coming back. We're coming back. We're coming back. We're coming back in just a moment. So I'll jump on over here. We may just have to finish. Oh, Australian NBN Internet. We love you ever so. Jump on over to Ron Ward. Do it now, in fact, because my connection just simply ain't coming on back. So I'm going to throw the link down there in the chat, and hopefully that's going to go through. And no, it's having trouble connecting, so it's not coming through at all. So we'll jump out and jump back in and see if we can get this one happening, shall we? Yo, technology for the win. Thanks for hanging out, folks. Do jump over now and check out Rockin' Ronnie Ward. There he is. He's doing his thing. Let's see what he's saying. Yeah, he's playing some music. I better not play that, or I'll get done for copyright. But yeah, do go over and check it out. I've dropped it into the chat there as well. But that is the place to be to go check out some cool tunes with our man Rockin' Ronnie Ward. That is going to do it for this one, folks. As we say at the end of every show, please be kind to yourself this week. Be kind to others. Help each other out, and keep creating. Don't forget to jump on over to studiolivetoday.com/GarageBand. That's your one-stop shop for all the cool stuff. It's where all the cool kids are hanging out. And until next time, folks, I'll see you on the next episode of GarageBand Weekly. Bye for now. See ya.
GarageBand, GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand, GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand, GarageBand Weekly.
Whoa, bye-bye.